everybody, I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me once again is Congressman Tim Burchett. Congressman, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
I really always appreciate you coming on and providing your perspective on whatever the latest news may be. And that's no different in the conversation we're going to be having today with Iran, because over the weekend, President Trump announced Operation Epic Fury, and we saw the United States and Israel launch a huge joint assault against Iran, resulting in the death of the country's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. And since then, we've seen Iran launch retaliatory strikes against multiple countries in the region. And President Trump has since suggested that this conflict could last 4 to 5 weeks, but it's moving, according to him, substantially ahead of schedule. And we've seen so far 4 service members from the United States military killed in action because of this conflict. So to start off the conversation, what do you make of these strikes? What's your reaction to the moment we're in right now?
I think they've been very successful and, as usual, very tactical. We took out, I think, 40 of their top leaders, some very bad people. I think America is being educated now which we knew, but that China bought a lot of their oil, and that's what funded a lot of their global terrorism, Iran's global terrorism. And this is derailing China's ability, I think, to further their cause of really totalitarianism around the world. You know, they use the Belt and Road Initiative. So there's a lot of other impact. Another thing I thought was interesting is that the Russians and the Chinese both their surface-to-air missile detection systems and things like that Iran was using, allegedly the best in the world. We shut them all down, and I think that sends a clear message. Iran, of course, was exporting their drone technology to Russia. Again, now they're cut off. So you got Iran and Russia that are against you, and the rest of the world pretty much. Even the UAE, a lot of the Arab countries are for us and allowing Israel, of all people, to fly over their airspace. So there is a lot to be gathered from this, and the fact that Iran's just a very cruel dictatorship, if you will. Little girls put on makeup, they get their eyes cut out, they throw gay folks off of buildings, they hang kids if they don't like their tweets. So, and they've killed probably 30,000 of their own people this year, and no telling how many they've imprisoned. And so it's, I think if the people of Iran will just seize it, I think you'll see a very peaceful transition in the Middle East.
To your point, we've seen celebrations around the world celebrating the news of the Ayatollah's death. At the same time, there have been criticisms of the administration over the action. President Trump, when he was announcing Operation Epic Fury, he said that Iran posed an imminent threat to the United States. That's the word that he used. And Senator Mark Warner, he is the top Democrat on the Senate Intel Committee. He said that he's not crying over the Ayatollah's death, right? The world and the regime in general are safer with him gone. But he said this was a war of choice, and he saw no intelligence that Iran was on the verge of launching any kind of preemptive strike against the United States of America. So as a lawmaker, I'm curious about your perspective here. Was Iran, with anything that you know, any intelligence evidence that you know, was Iran posing an imminent threat to the U.S.?
I think so. I think just look at their past history. In the 70s, the Iranian hostage, they took our embassy and several Marines over 400 days. 240 Marines lost their lives in Libya that were armed. It was instigated by Iran. And then you had around, I think it was 2000, we had one of our Navy ships was hit, and I think 4 sailors lost their lives there. And then if you look just in our war in Iraq, a lot of the armaments that that were being used were actually either funded or brought from Iran. they were built there. You know, they got an armaments industry over there, and they were exporting that in that war. So there's a lot to go on there. And then of course Trump eliminated their nuclear capabilities, but it was interesting. I noticed that one of their members of parliament, or whatever their, I need to get the name of it, whatever their delegation is, called for nuclear missiles to be rained down on us. And of course, I don't know if he even knew it or not, that we'd already destroyed their nuclear, at that time, their nuclear capabilities. So it's pretty clear if they had them, they wouldn't be afraid to use them. So, and everybody in that area agrees that they do not need to have them. And that tells you, when the other Arab countries side with America and Israel, that tells you that something's up. They don't want a nuclear war over there. They don't want any war over there. I think they're embracing capitalism right now around that area. So I would assume in the future that would be their course of action.
President Trump hasn't ruled out putting boots on the ground in Iran. And both President Trump and Department of War Secretary Pete Hegseth have predicted that there could be more casualties in this conflict. Is that something, what do you make of that? Do you want to see troops in Iran, American troops on Iran? Is that putting America first, like President Trump promised? What do you make of that?
No, I'd prefer not. I don't see, I see there's plenty over there of other nations that can get in the fight and assume that role. I don't see that right now being an option. I think we need to have an exit strategy, and it need to be sooner rather than later.
Do you think, or based on what President Trump has said to Congress at all, or what his administration has briefed you all on, is there a clear exit strategy? I know that he said that he sees this going 4 to 5 weeks. He said we were substantially ahead of schedule. What does that exit look like?
I couldn't tell you exact dates, but the reality is they took out 40 of their top leaders, and it's up to the people of Iran now whether they want to continue, because the reality is that probably less than 10% of their population is of this radical Muslim belief, and you have some Christians over there and some other groups, and so I would think that once those are eliminated and their military is neutered, that the people can take control, and I think they will.
I know that President Trump wanted members of the IRGC and the military police to drop their weapons to the Iranian people. Realistically, do you think that is going to happen? And who would lead Iran now? Because I know that President Trump, he told, I believe, ABC that the top contenders that the United States had in mind to assume Iran's leadership, they're now dead.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think if you saw where they one of their missile strikes that did hit, it hit an empty base of ours that everybody knew it was empty. And I think that sent a message. I think that was a message that, in fact, there's some factions within their military that don't want to die. They don't want to under a failed dead leader. So I think there's an opportunity there. I really do.
I know that over the past few days, many congressional Republicans have come out in support of these strikes. A few, however, are against them. And I want to get your reaction to something one of those Republicans said, and that's your colleague, Congressman Thomas Massie. I want to read you a post of his in part. This is what he said. When Congress reconvenes, I will work with Congressman Ro Khanna to force a congressional vote on war with Iran. The Constitution requires a vote, and your representative needs to be on record as opposing or supporting this war. So how would you vote on a war powers resolution?
Well, I don't think it's a war. It's a conflict with their leadership, not with their people. A war is a completely different thing. So I would look at the complete definition, and I don't think I would not support that. I think we don't need to tie the hands of the president right now. We need to put this very corrupt, lethal Iranian government down. And I think if we do that, if we're strategic in what we're doing, I think that the people will seize that power. And I think that they've shown their willingness to do that already by just going out in the streets, women without head covers. You got a country that would gouge a little girl's eyes out because she wears makeup, or throw a gay person off of a building, or actually hang a kid for doing a bad tweet, or stone a woman who got raped and turn around and blame her. To me, that's just barbaric, and I think the people have had enough of that.
I know that when he was just talking about the casualties, both President Trump and War Secretary Pete Hegseth, they both used the term war. Do you think what do you make of that? Has there been discussions on what constitutes a war versus not? Because this is a conflict that has such a wide scope.
Yes, ma'am. I think that's the $1 million question: what constitutes a war? And again, I think our beef is with their leadership and their structure. As long as they lay down their arms, they throw the white flag up, it's over. It is over. Again, I think that by doing so, that would send a message to people of their country that it is time for peace, and I think they would embrace that.
My last question to you is, what's next here? Because I know that President Trump, as you and I discussed, said that he could see this conflict going on for a few more weeks. But he did tell CNN's Jake Tapper that we haven't even started hitting them hard. The big wave hasn't even happened. The big one is coming soon. Do you as a lawmaker have any indication of what that would look like and what we should prepare for over the next coming days and weeks?
I think it'd be devastation on their structure. We've about eliminated their Navy. We've destroyed their missile capabilities. Again, we need to make sure ensure that the people, the radicals that run that country, don't get back in power. And we need to, I think, also with the nuclear capabilities that they had, I think if they were allowed to pursue that any further, I think we would see that could lead us into World War III. So I think our mission is not quite accomplished, but I think you're going to see a lot more devastation on their part.
Do you think we're in danger, as you and I sit here right now, of a potential World War III?
I think we're in danger every second of the day, but you have to look at past administrations. I mean, the Obama administration gave them pallets of cash, and there's a question of whether Hillary Clinton did or did not allow them to get back in the nuclear game. They talk about their nuclear power for energy, but ma'am, they're sitting on the largest oil supplies in the world. Why would they need nuclear power to run generators or create electricity? They wouldn't. No, they've got it right underneath them, and that's oil, and they've got plenty of it. And so I think given those capabilities, they would use them.
I know that President Trump said that last week, at least, that Iran wasn't negotiating in good faith. Do you think diplomacy is dead right now? I mean, we're seeing this operation play out. President Trump said Iran wanted to talk. An Iranian top official said, we're not negotiating with the United States. Do you think diplomacy is completely dead? And when or if you would ever like to see nuclear talks resume?
I don't think diplomacy's dead. I think the 40 or so people that they were negotiating with earlier on are dead. So I think you're going to have that in the upcoming in their upcoming leadership in that battle to whoever gets into power. Because we don't, during the Second World War, a lot of people didn't know this, but there was an opportunity. They could have taken Hitler out. The British could drop commandos in, and they were going to take him out as he'd take these morning walks. But they didn't take him out because he was such a terrible leader. And some of their real valuable military leaders were kind of suppressed. In this situation, though, we think the people that could follow, most of them were already killed. And a lot of those people are in exile that we think could run that country. So I would hope at some point that would be an option for the people. They could bring those people home and they could take their country back.
Congressman, I really always appreciate your perspective here, your opinion. Thank you so much for joining me, and you are welcome back anytime. Always appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am. It is a complete pleasure. Thank you.